Hi, everyone. My name is Jane Tilton, and I hope that all of you are having a great time here at BreyerFest. Something we all have in common is that we love horses. I've loved horses ever since I was a little girl, and like many of you, I've always loved to draw horses. Today, we're going to learn one way to draw a horse's head. To serve as a model, I have a model. This is Sierra Rose, one of my very favorite Breyer horses. She was a special run tent model in BreyerFest 2018. So, let's get started. First, we want to loosen our arm up when we get ready to draw because we're going to be using circles today. So one nice exercise, just take a piece of paper, and you notice I'm using my whole hand and my forearm, and I'm doing circles. Okay, so what that will do is help us to more freely draw our circles when we begin our horse head. So to begin with, let's do our first circle. And notice it doesn't have to be perfect. It can have a lot of lines in it. It's all right. We're going to do a large circle and then a smaller circle. These are going to begin to make the horse head. We want to join them with a slightly curved line here and here. Now to help you to visualize why, here's our horse head. We can see the main part of the head is the bigger circle and the muzzle is the smaller circle, and it's joined. Now we want to give a little estimate on where we want the eyes and the nose. So we remember that the horse has a huge eye. It's one of the biggest eyes there is of any land animal. And the nostril would be about there. We can use our model again to start positioning the neck. Once again, it doesn't have to be perfect. So we have the area here for the neck. The ears are going to be added, and a little trick that someone told me about is to draw a light arc. And what this will do is to help you to shape the outside of your ears. But before we do that, we're going to learn a little more about drawing the nose, the eyes, and the ears. Because our horse is looking in this direction, as you might notice, I'm going to do a little arch, and our ears are going to follow that. The horse has curvature to the ear. In other words, they point inward when they have them pricked up. And of course, down in the bottom of the ear, it's going to be darker because as the sound goes in, it goes into the skull and makes the sound. So here we have the ear. And we notice that because it's turned, a little bit of the back of the ear is showing. The nostril is very interesting. I like to think of it as a backward 6. If we take that and we begin to shape it, we'll notice that the horse's nostrils are generally dark in this area because as the light comes in and it gets further into the nostril or it goes into the skull area, it darkens. I like to put a little rim around it because as the horse's nostrils flare, it will cast a shadow under the nostril. And what this does is to help it to appear that the nostril is flared open. Now we want to work on the horse's eye. What we want to remember is the horse with its eye, it's like a big marble, but not exactly. Here we're starting the eye of the horse. For all practical purposes, it's a ball that sits in this protective area in the skull, the socket to protect the eye. And outside of the eye, it has lots of muscle, skin, hair, things that will protect the eye and hold it in place. You notice the ramus of the eye is actually encased by the eyelids, and that's what we're going to draw in today. Notice that the eyelid just curves around and holds the eyeball. And here's the other eyelid, the bottom. Over here is the tear duct. There's a membrane in here. And for the eye, for artistic purposes, we're going to dilate the pupil of the eye, and we're going to put a little squiggle in here, which is actually going to be the highlight of the eye. So I'm going to put my detail in now of the eyelid. Remember, we're going to have some eyelashes, the bottom eyelid, and then the colored area of the eye, which is here on the outside. Now notice the pupil is going to be dark. I could color the whole pupil in, but you would miss that little spark of light. All animals and people have little light areas that light will bounce off of and reflect, and that gives you a more realistic looking eye. We shade a little bit because the eyelid is coming over the eyeball. And as we come down to the bottom, we keep it a little bit light in this area because the light is also reflecting in this. And for the structure of the bone, you'll notice the horse's eye has a little shape in here. You'll see that it comes up and down. And once again, put our eyelashes in. Alrighty, so we have the ears, we have the nostrils, and we have the eye. So let's go back to our horse. I'm drawing our ears. We remember we had a little arc there. So we're going to start drawing in our horse's ear. And remember, on the inside, it's a little darker. And you can see the back part, the ear here. Going to have a little mane in here too, so just for the eye, once again, we're starting with our circle. We're going to go in here and start forming the eyelid over the eye, corner. Remember, our pupil is going to have some reflection in there, so we don't want to color it all in. And we start darkening their eye. Something else I would like to add, that in this area, generally there's shading because the eye causes this part of the bottom eyelid to extend a little bit. So this will give it the appearance of shading under here. That up a little bit. Then we're going to want to look at our horse to give us a little bit of an idea of the shape. And we can go in and shape the mouth, the chin, over here to the jaw. And feel free to erase any of this. If you decide that the jaw is a little bit too fat, don't worry about it. We see here's some facial structure. This is the bone in the jaw area. And we even have a little bit of veining in here. There we go. We're going to do our backward 6, and then we're going to color it in. Put our shading in, and then the mouth. The eraser, I'll show you how this is nice because it picks up things. Anything that's a little smeary, don't feel bad about it. This will pick it up very easily. And what I do, I like to take this out. Then I can go back in with my pencils. Touch up. The name. Remember, we have a little blood vessel right here. Even on the muzzle, you might see little freckles. So we have our basic horse. I think I am going to make this a little bit larger. I think I like the idea of the eye being just a little bit shinier area there. Okay. We don't see our mane, it's on the other side. Or you can put a mane here if you like. It's your drawing, you can do anything you want to with it. Okay. So we have our basic horse head. Well, it would be fun to color it, but there's another thing that we can do. And this is where our tracing paper comes in. What I want to do is to look at just the lines I want to keep. So I want to keep ear. And I'm going to keep mane. and the nostril. Eyeball that we're going to case in the eyelid. And our little shiny spot. You can study pictures of horses too, which are very helpful. Many times, the positioning of the whites of the eyes indicates if the horse is wild or afraid or docile even. Here we have our basic shape of the horse. And what we're going to do with this is to transfer our original drawing onto a clean piece of paper. And this is where we can do one of two things. You can either leave this as pencil, or you can retrace over it if you want to make a darker line. Should be fine to use the pencil. I think so. I believe the tracing paper, you can see through it pretty easily. Alrighty. And with a little piece of tape, I'm going to tape our, don't do it backwards like I did. I've done that before. Get done with the drawing and you pick it up and there's nothing there. So here we go. Put that here. We'll take our horse and a little sharper pencil. And remember, this is going to be going onto a clean sheet of paper. And here we go. We're going to trace our ears, our forelock. You can refine it. If you decide you'd like to have a little smaller nose, you can certainly do that. It's your artwork. You're the artist. Once again, our circle, we're encasing it. And what this is going to do is to give us a clean sheet of paper that we can decide what we want to do, whether we want to color it with crayons or perhaps markers, watercolor, whatever you're going to want to do. But there's a little secret here. You might not know exactly what you want to do. Maybe you want to try several different things. Okay, let's see how this is looking. Alrighty. And here we are. You can just barely see the outline, but this will give us our cleaned up outline of our horse. There's a lot of shading that we can do too to make it realistic, like we shaded under the nostril, we shaded under the eye. That's where looking at some really good pictures of horses helps a lot. You can learn a lot from photographs, although there's nothing like having a real horse stand in front of you. Remember, as we saw on our model, See the facial area here? There's the bone. She even has a little bit of veining here. We know what veining is. If you've ever painted a model horse and you wanted to put veins on it, you can paint the veins right on there. Okay. Whoops. Do not despair. What is that? It's a pencil mark, and we can erase it. So that's what we're going to do here. And the neck, back of the ear. If you want to, put her mane in. The little trick that I was going to tell you about. Have your parents take your original drawing and make copies of it. Keep this as your original, and the copies you can use to paint and color anywhere you want, in any way you want, and you'll always have your original. Then when you decide you want to paint your original, just remember when it's finished, this is your artwork. So what you're going to want to do is sign it. And it's always good to put the date. Whoopsie, we're in 2020. Here you go. So that is an easy way to draw a horse. Remember, we start off with circles. This was our original drawing, and we noticed how we had taken out some of the circle lines here. We used our tracing paper with our graphite paper and retraced it onto a clean sheet. And there's your original. Thank you to all for joining me in this tutorial on drawing the horse's head. It's fun. Until we see you again, have a wonderful time here at Celtic Fling BreyerFest. Bye everyone.